I'm glad you're with us. Today we have two fabulous presenters for this session. They're going to share the time, so we're going to have about 30 minutes apiece. We're going to start out with Tonya Kauhi. She is the GIS Program Manager for the Port of Tacoma. She describes herself as a techno-optimist who uses her GIS as her superpower to engage and educate the community, provide geospatial insights to help make better business decisions and save the port time and money. She has almost 20 years experience planning, coordinating, developing, implementing, integrating, and maintaining geographic information systems. Tonya specializes in data management, GIS architecture, improving workflows, and evangelizing GIS. She's the leader and co-founder of the Washington Women in GIS and Technology, which is a professional networking group, and she joins us today to talk about staying connected in difficult times. So, Tonya, I'll hand it off to you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jenna, for that great introduction. I'm just going to start the presentation here and share my screen. Hold on. All right, so hopefully everybody can see my screen now. Perfect, okay. Oops. Oh, one front thing here. There we go. Okay, well, thank you so much, Jenna, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a great conference. As Jenna said, my name is Tonya Colli, and I'm so honored to share this first Education and Training Symposium with you. Thank you for allowing me to speak here today, and thank you for all the work that you do in advancing and advocating for GIS. It's really important. Since the pandemic, most of us have had some major changes in the way we work and play, and it's become even more challenging to stay connected, maintain focus, and keep moving forward. Today, I hope to give you some ideas on how to communicate your value, stay connected, and remain positive through these changing times. So normally when I do this presentation, I would start off by saying, hey, turn to your neighbor and introduce yourself. You know, after all, we're talking about making connections. But since we aren't able to be in the same room, instead I'm just going to ask you to kind of do a quick exercise in your head. So just think about how you would normally introduce yourself to somebody new if you're meeting at this conference, for example. How would you respond when somebody asks you, what do you do? For example, do you tell them your job title, the company you work for, the year's experience? You know, just keep it in mind, and we'll discuss this further in a minute. So along those lines, has anybody ever had trouble explaining what you do when you say, you know, I'm a GIS analyst, I work in GIS, especially outside of, you know, typical GIS conferences? Have you ever gotten that blank stare about, well, what exactly is GIS? You know, we try to explain what GIS stands for, and then it gets worse, so we eventually give up and blurt out, say, I make maps, you know, like Google Earth. They say, ah, that's cool, but that usually ends the conversation. And when we're talking to somebody about what we do, you want to capture their curiosity, so they ask more questions. You ask questions about what they do, they ask questions about what you do, and it creates that connection. So, you know, it not only creates that understanding of what you do, but it also creates that memorable connection. So once I was shopping at my neighborhood market, and the clerk noticed my jacket that had the Port of Tacoma logo on it. He leaned in very interested and asked, oh, you work for the Port of Tacoma, what do you do? And I quickly answered, you know, I'm a GIS programs manager. You know, he kind of gave me a blank stare, took a step back and said, oh, you know, I don't know what that is. And, you know, I tried to explain further, but it was obvious I already lost him and my chance to make that connection. So connecting to people to what you do and your unique value that you provide is really key to building great relationships and finding people of similar interests. It really does provide opportunities to work on projects that expand your technical skills. You know, if you understand what you love to do, and if people understand what you love to do and the value you bring, you're more likely to be part of projects that fit within your skills, or even better yet, challenge those technical skills. And really, this ultimately leads to doing what you love. So why is this important to be able to clearly and concisely explain what you do? You know, I'm sure you've heard the expression, you know, you only have one chance to make a first impression. But did you know we even have less time to make that first impression than before? In fact, humans now have a shorter attention span than goldfish. That's right, the average attention span in a goldfish is actually 9 seconds. But according to a new study by Microsoft, as of 2013, people generally lose concentration after about 8 seconds. So it's really important, excuse me, it really is important to make that first impression very quickly and capture their interest. You know, another reason to be able to describe what GIS is and how it provides value is because we all should be GIS evangelists or cheerleaders. We should be able to talk about the power of GIS at any moment, and if you have a few things prepared, it really does set you up for success. Maybe my connection to the clerk in my neighborhood market might not lead to my dream job, but you never know. And, you know, but what about talking to my CEO, executives, or commissioners that may have no idea what GIS is or how we can provide business value at my organization? And you really want to be prepared for those opportunities. So with that in mind, here's a little bit more about me. I graduated from the University of Washington with a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science. I currently have 20 years experience working in GIS, and I'm the GIS Programs Manager for the Port of Tacoma. And that was sort of boring. So, okay, well, maybe not boring, but certainly not really unique or memorable. You know, I told you my job title, my education, my experience, but nothing else. And if you were in a room full of GIS managers or analysts, you know, I'm not sure I would stand out and be memorable. So also, I didn't tell you what I actually do. You know, why am I special and what specific value do I provide to my organization? What are my unique strengths and why would you want to work with me? This goes beyond your job title, and this is really called your personal brand. You know, and think of a company has brands like you recognize logos like Starbucks. You know exactly what the value they provide. You trust them. You know, you have a brand too, and that's what we'll talk about. So if we, you know, I would have been better if I introduced myself more something like this. I use technology to help the port improve business processes, make better decisions, and save time and money. So most people understand saving time and money. It's more accessible. I'm not using any technical jargon. And hopefully they will ask you to tell them more. Really, how did you do that? How did you save time? How much money? You know, and then it is always really good to have kind of a follow-up answer to be prepared with. So for example, you know, recently we used GPS data to verify container ships have never navigated within a habitat area, which saved us $40,000 on a survey. So most people would probably be a little more interested in something like that. So, and then when you're trying to connect with somebody too, it's always vital to know your audience. So you may want to have a couple of different ways to describe your personal brand and use them accordingly. For example, this one, I create applications to educate the community about the port's value within Pierce County, which is a county that my port is in. That one might be great for talking to executives or port commissioners, you know, people that don't need to know all the technical jargon and details. And how about this one, techno-optimist looking for spatial problems to solve. So that one might be good for a presentation bio, you know, a tagline on your resume, or maybe even your dating profile. So, and please keep in mind, there's nothing wrong with to say that, you know, here's my job title and saying you make maps. Obviously, we love maps. Maps are awesome. But I guarantee most of us do much more than maps. And also by saying we just make maps, it undervalues your skills and potentially contributes to the underutilization of geospatial technologies within your organization. When they need a map, great, they'll come to you, but what about everything else? What about all the other capabilities that a GIS can offer and that you can offer as an analyst or a manager, you know, using the geospatial technologies? So if we keep telling people we just make maps, we should not be surprised when they don't ask us to do anything else. So really, what is a personal brand and how do you build one? You know, there are a lot of great resources out there, but to start, you know, a personal brand is simply a combination of your image and reputation. So really, you need to start with three things. There's three components. The first one is who you are, and that's we're calling your persona. So when you think of your persona, what words, concepts, or ideas do people associate with you, your name, and your image? For example, are you a good listener, confident, optimistic? You know, maybe you're flexible. Those are all kind of examples of your persona. Your promise. So what do you bring to the table? This is really about, do you have a clear understanding of what you do and what the value it brings to your organization? And this is really unique to you. How does somebody benefit from working with you? It's really what sets you apart. Do you offer unparalleled quality? Do you provide quick turnarounds? Do you enjoy solving complex problems? I bet most of the people that you work with already know about these things. And it's a great idea to ask them, too, to help build your brand. And then the last thing is promotion. And this is really how you communicate your value. And this is how you tell people about your brand. So it could be through presenting. It could be through presenting at conferences, volunteering, add it to your LinkedIn profile, and most importantly, live it. And so if we look back at my brand, it's really in how you build a brand. It's really about linking your strongest attribute or your persona and the results it creates for somebody, that's your promise, into a story. And then you tell your story, and that's through the promotion. So if we looked at my example before, if you broke this down, my persona would be, hey, I'm passionate about helping my organization and using geospatial technology to solve problems. My promise, hey, I improve business value and I save time and money. So that's what I brought to the table. And then again, promotion, I'm sharing it with you today. You could put it in your bio or a conference presentation. And obviously, there's always your LinkedIn profile. That's a great place to start adding these things. And again, next time you meet somebody, you'll have something kind of prepared to go. And so really, just keep in mind when you build your brand, you want to do it with intention. It takes time to build your brand, so it's best, to devote some time to it. And you'll go through several drafts. I would recommend, running it by some people. It's always good to get feedback from others to say, what do you think of this? And just it's a very fluid thing, so it's going to take some time to build. And I think understand your audience and your value. So you might have 2 or 3 different brands to go at any specific time that you're going to be ready to pull out. If you're at a conference, a GIS conference, your brand might be very, very different than if you're talking to somebody at your organization. So, and really, the most important thing here is be authentic and show people your value. Don't tell people about your value. People probably already know, a little bit about what value you bring, but it does have to be authentic. And really, the best way to show is rather than tell. And the good thing about here, if you do it right, then you're going to be creating these personal brand advocates that are going to be sharing, hey, this person's really great at this, so use them on your next project. Or so-and-so's awesome at this, go get them to help you on this. And so that's really how it really can help move your career forward on certain things and really help you do things you want to learn or expand your skills on or really do more of what you really love to do. And it's a process. So, it really is a process. So it's about becoming a lifelong learner. You're going to probably, as you move through your career, you'll change it a lot. It's dynamic. It will change over time. And it's really a journey and not a destination. So, and I would encourage everybody to practice, start small. It will get easier. Don't worry about saying it for word. Obviously, you can be more formal with your brand on a resume or a LinkedIn profile, likely than a conversation with somebody. So practice it with different people until it does become conversational. And creating a personal brand is really simply an exercise in getting prepared to talk with people about the great work you do and looking for those opportunities to share your story. About 5 years ago, I just had created my personal brand and attended a state GIS conference. We had an amazing keynote speaker that came up to me at our breakfast, and I was so excited. I was a little nervous, but I was like, hey, I'm going to try my personal brand on her. So I kind of fumbled through it, and she was asking questions. I asked questions about what she do, what she does, and I did my best to share my value with her. And about 6 months later, had a nice conversation, moved on. About 6 months after that, we go to the Esri International User Conference. So going from a 300-person conference to an 18,000-person conference, and I walked past her in the map gallery, and she not only remembered me, but she asked me specifically about one of the projects going on that I shared with her during that conversation. And I thought that was amazing. That she not only had so much time go by that she not only remembered me, but she remembered some of the stuff we very specifically talked about. So, I know you could say, okay, that she might just have an amazing memory. And, but I really felt that the fact that we exchanged stories, I felt made a much bigger impression. And it also provided me with an opportunity to identify what I really love to do. You take some time and you do it, you kind of discover some things, and then you become a little more confident about next time somebody asks you that. And again, this is not just about, opportunities at conferences. If your boss thinks you only make maps, and, again, don't be surprised if that's the only time of work don't be surprised if that's the only type of work they send your way. Okay, so, and I did want to mention, personal brand is not really, it's not just another elevator speech. Elevator speeches are great and typically are designed to talk about yourself in the amount of time, that you're in an elevator, about 20, 30 seconds. And there are some components of your elevator speech that can be used to build your brand. But I think a brand goes deeper than that, and as it represents, who you are and the value that they will get by working with you. Elevator speeches can also be a little too focused on you and not the other person. And remember, we're trying to make connections, so that's more of a two-way street. And again, it's better to exchange those stories and not speeches. I think that people love to hear stories. They love to hear about things that you are really proud of that you've done. I mean, it's more memorable than just you spouting off all your credentials. So, and I really love this quote. An elevator pitch creates curiosity, where a personal brand creates a following or a movement. And that's by John Boyens, a sales consultant. Okay, so another great way to make connections is networking. A Harvard University study showed that 15% of the reason a person gets a job, keeps a job, or advances in a job is related to to technical skills and job knowledge. That means 85% has to do with people skills. So, when you think about that, that's a huge thing that, okay, if you don't have some people skills, you better start working on that. And a big part of people skills is being able to network and being comfortable talking about what you do and your organization. So I know for some people networking is kind of a four-letter word, and sometimes it has the implication of being kind of cheesy because somebody's used to trying to sell you something. But really, network is simply just listening, talking, and getting to know somebody with intention. And speaking as an introvert, I know how overwhelming the idea of talking to strangers and asking questions to get to know them can be. But I also know the more prepared you are, the easier it is. And in my experience, networking is really vital to, furthering your career. It really does open opportunities that you didn't know that were even possible. Making those connections to lead to those opportunities and learn those new skills. And it does build your confidence, learn those people skills to be able to talk to new people in any situation. It does just take practice. And speaking of great people, amazing people, here's my networking group that Jenna mentioned that I'm involved with, my Washington Women in GIS and Technology group. We've been involved with this since 2013. You can see the upper photo is us in our very first meeting. We had like 8 people, and then in 2013, and then in 2019, here's our lunch at our state GIS conference. We have about 130 members now. It really does empower women to learn, teach, and promote GIS and technology. We have members from around the state and that work in all areas of GIS and technology, and we really just meet monthly to network, learn, share ideas, industry information, experience, and advice. So, really find a networking group that speaks to you, and if you can find one, if you can't find one that resonates with you, start your own. And now is the perfect time to start networking and trying new ways to connect with meetup groups. There are so many ways now to meet new people. Conferences, city tours, book clubs, wine and chocolate tasting, they're all virtual. So you don't even need to leave your house. And I really do know it's hard to not being in person, but since the pandemic, we've all noticed the increase. We've even noticed the increase of meeting attendees in my Women in GIS group. And I think this really shows that even after most of us are spending 8 hours on your computer, people still need that opportunity to connect, even if it is just virtually for a while. So really try to reach out. Understand it's a small world. You never know where meeting these people will take you. I can say that, just participating in this network group that I've been a part of, I've been so blessed, but it's just provided me so many opportunities to meet great people, learn new things. understand. It helps us understand their business and others. And really, it's just building those relationships. It's so important. Another great way to connect people is through mentoring. Now, you can either work with a mentor or you can become one to others or both. I think people feel that mentoring can be too much of a formal process, and I really don't think it has to be. I think it could be as formal or as informal as you want. I would recommend don't wait for people to reach out to you. If you want to learn more about what somebody does or get their advice, ask them. I mean, most people are just happy. They're flattered to talk about what they love and to share their experience with you. And, really the easiest way to be a mentor is to look for ways to share what you love. The more people understand what you love, the more opportunities will come along for you to do it. If you're sharing something out there and you're showing your passion, people are going to want to be a part of that, and they want to see more of it. So it really does create these opportunities that you wouldn't really have coming to you any other way. And say yes. And so these opportunities hopefully will come your way. And, even if they scare you, say yes, especially if they make you uncomfortable, say yes. It's in these opportunities where you will grow the most and learn new skills. And there is a really great, if you're looking specifically for ways to mentor for teachers, like help teachers mentor GIS in schools, and I think it's mostly K through 12, but even some college, I would recommend checking out American Association of Geographers. They have a great geo-mentoring program. They can sign up and you get connected with teachers looking for geo-mentors. So really easy way to get involved. And really, one of the main things that I think is attitude. I think attitude is so important in just advancing your career and being open to new activities, having that growth mindset. And this is one of my favorite quotes from Zig Ziglar. He's a motivational speaker. Excuse me. Your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. And so, studies have shown that only 25% of career success is IQ. That means the remaining 75% is being positive and your social support. So, huge reasons to be positive. And I truly believe if you stay positive and look for those opportunities to share what you love, you can do anything. You don't have to be the smartest. Just keep moving forward when it gets tough. And there's actually research linking positivity to happiness and success. When we're positive, our brains become more engaged, creative, motivated, and energetic, and resilient. And in fact, did you know when you're positive, your brain is 37% more productive? I mean, that's a great reason to kind of make sure you're staying positive. So, here we go. So lastly, I'd like to introduce you to Craig and Fred. So Craig was this is a great example of being positive and through difficult circumstances. Craig was a Marine serving in Afghanistan, where he met this skinny, dirty, stray dog named Fred. Most dogs in this area live in packs and are really friendly with people. In fact, Marines are told to stay away from them and not approach dogs because they could be aggressive. However, when Craig approached Fred, he wagged his tail and he gladly accepted his affection. And Craig was really blown away by this. What did this dog have to be so happy about? And why did he show him trust and love when obviously he had not much in return? He was hot, homeless, and hungry, and he was living in a battlefield. And he said he wagged his tail and it blew him away. So Craig described Fred as having this stubborn positivity. And I really love that phrase. Stubborn positivity is really about putting all your passion and energy into being positive and not getting discouraged when times get tough. In other words, being positive at all costs. So Craig was so taken by Fred's stubborn positivity, he smuggled him home and adopted him. Now they travel the world together, telling their story and spreading their message of hope, resilience, and stubborn positivity. So remember, it's not what happens to us that matters, but how we respond to it. We cannot choose our situations that we're in, but we can choose how we respond to them. And really, this is what stubborn positivity looks like to me. Embracing that failure, keep moving forward. So try not to get discouraged, and it's through these failures where we learn the most anyway. So if you keep moving forward, there's always a lesson to be learned. Keep learning. These are amazing. There's amazing opportunities out there to learn a new technical skill or a new hobby, or even going, with everything going virtual, virtual, and the world of possibilities have just really opened up. And find ways to share what you love. It really will connect you to people and open opportunities that you never even knew were possible. So personal branding, networking, mentoring, and attitude all contribute to making connections and having a positive influence on building those relationships and building your community. I mean, these are the people that you will rely on, continually throughout your career, and really opening up those new career opportunities. So really, thank you for the work that you do every day. It is core to building great relationships and helping people understand the value of geospatial technology and location intelligence. I hope you've learned a little bit about the power of connection. If you can clearly share with the world your unique value, share what you love, practice that stubborn positivity, you will make a difference and change the world. All right, and here's my contact information, so thank you very much. Please reach out if you have any questions or would like more information about creating your personal brand. And my Women in GIS group actually created a workbook, and it is available on our website here if you are interested. So with that, thank you, and I'll pass it back to Jenna.
Thanks, Tonya. That was fabulous. I guess for everybody that's joined us, I saw Tonya's presentation through a NSGIC group, through our Geo Women group at NSGIC, and was floored. It really made a big difference to me, and enough that I went through the workbook and created my own personal brand, and I can't even say how much it helped me. So thank you, Tonya. I would encourage everybody here to go through the process of identifying those things for yourself. I think it makes a really big difference in how we see ourselves, how we approach the world, how we go about our business. I think it's important. And I'll step off of my soapbox.
No, I'm going to have the presentation next time. So that's awesome.
Excellent. Too fun. So I was looking in the chat, and it looks like everybody loves your ideas and really enjoyed your presentation, Tonya. I don't have any questions right now for you. So with that, I think we'll move on to David. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So our next presenter is David Moss. And I think many of you know him. He is the GIO from Maricopa County. Over the last 5 years, the GIS adoption budget and staff has reached unprecedented levels in Maricopa County. And with the confidence and trust of Maricopa County's leadership, the team has been recognized with 8 National Association of Counties awards, Achievement in GIS Award, and one of the most impressively managed GIS architectures in the U.S. I would have to second that. David does an amazing job, he and his team. Currently, his team is strategizing and incorporating cloud, AI, and machine learning technologies to analyze massive sets of structured and unstructured data and imagery to address concerns with data accuracy, user access, and develop a virtual data analysis assistant to help departments successfully deliver Maricopa County's strategic plan to their citizens. So I am very excited to have David here. He's going to talk to us about some of his strategies for professional development and how he works with his team. So thank you for joining us, David.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Let me get this up.
Do you have control, David? You can share your screen? I think that was my fault. I apologize.
Nope, I think I'm good now. So
okay.
Here.
And David, you sound just a little quiet. I don't know if you can turn your volume up just a little bit. There you
How
go.
is this? Is this better?
Okay. Yeah, that's
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
All right. So so I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to. I did a presentation earlier in January called the GIS Management Blueprint, and I was able to go over some things that I've done myself in real time and real world experience. At all the years I've worked at different job functions in GIS on different type of avenues in transportation, assessment. I even worked on the private sector, and these things work, and it's a lot of work, but they work and they help grow your GIS department, or as I like to call it, grow us and more into the IT space and more on the business side of the house, right? Because even though it's GIS, it's geographic information systems, we're also integrated with the business a lot. And I think sometimes we kind of forget that the business is our customers to the point where we need to understand them more than maybe the IS part. And so I want to I want to help with that by showing you guys some of this information that we have today. So one of the things I always like to lead with in my presentation is you want to proceed with caution, because not everybody is cut out to be a leader. Now, people tell you all the time you can grow into leadership. Yes, but there's one critical thing, and the presentation before me also highlighted those ideas and things like that to help you, which I totally agree with what she was saying. Is one of my favorite quotes is to know oneself is to study oneself in action with another person. And I'm a big Bruce Lee fan. So with that, what that means is before you can move as a leader, you need to understand what you are good at and where you're deficient. You have to have that self-reflection, right? I have people on my team that say, look, I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to be a leader. I just want to get the work done. That's great, because in that space, that person knows exactly who they are. Now, sometimes in government, we end up getting positions because of salary and other things, but then we catch ourselves in a leadership role, and now all of a sudden we're having issues because we have equipped ourselves with those skill sets. So those are things too. And if you realize that you're not a leader, that's okay. You could always hire somebody on your team that could be your leader, and then you can do the things you need to do, but somebody has to do that. Now, one of the things I want you guys to do as well is, if you look at the top of my screen on menti.com, and that's the code, I have a little interaction going on with my presentation towards the middle part of it, and I think it's really cool to do that, and I really want to get you guys' response. So I have some of the slides from the last presentation in this one, but I also have some more. Now, like I said, you may have heard some of these items as well, but trust me, they work, and they give you everything you need to expand out your GIS department to the point where you're critical to the assets. One of the things I like to say is this: I want folks to use GIS like every day, like 5 now, right? You're using it in that fashion. So one of the big things that I always talk about is perceptions. And what I mean by that is, the perception is, you always have your department. If you're a new hire and you come in, there's a perception of your department or your division already, right? And it's okay, whatever that perception is, but you have to acknowledge it. Okay? You have to acknowledge it, and I'll kind of explain a bit more in the next session. So don't fight it. Just acknowledge that's the perception is. And then moving from there, understand that, and then use that to your advantage. One of the perceptions we had when I first started on our jazz group, that we wasn't very good. We didn't have the skill sets that people thought we should have had. So I was like, okay, if you believe that, I acknowledge that's what you believe, and here's what I'm going to do to address it. And by me saying that, I acknowledge the issue, and here's what I'm going to do. So that comes with, as you'll see in my other slide, comes with ownership. Then you go into responsibility. Then you go into accountability. That's how you get started. If you don't own it, you can't get responsibility and accountability. And if you look around in your department, you'll see that in a lot of different places. Oh, it's somebody else's issue. You know, it's this, it's that. And that's one thing I tell my team. If whatever touches the map or the app we build is not working, it's our job to understand, analyze it, take advantage of it. We have monitoring tools. I would say right now in our department, we have the most monitoring tools than anybody in our department on our GIS applications. We know when the network's up. We know when the server is down. We know when somebody sneezed and decided to pull the cord or sneezed on the machine. We see it. And that's because I owned in the team, took the lead on owning the whole experience of using a GIS application. That's where you got to go. That's where the trustworthy and the competency plays in the part when you're building those relationships with your department heads and your directors on that. So after you do that initial self-reflection and you understand that, here's where I believe the 3 steps where it turns into the great culture that for on your team, right? You had that ownership. You got to own the good or the bad perceptions, issues, your team or your department. When I first started, our department wasn't very good, particularly. And I would go over there and people would comment about how my department had these issues and that issue. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. Here's what I'm doing in my team to address those, to be responsible. And I'll take that back and educate my executives and my managers on what I'm hearing. And so then they were like, oh, okay, well, you're not denying it. So okay, great. Then we can move forward. Then I could move to the next part. And once I took that ownership, then I was making that responsibility to address those issues. Okay. And while I'm taking that ownership and responsibility, now comes accountability that I'm like, all right, here's what we're going to do. And here's how I'm going to be accountable as a leader to make sure that my team take care of these items and make sure we do that. And then once I start doing that, the team members start seeing that. They're like, oh, okay, well, David is not going to let that slide. He's going to look at that. He's going to address that. Okay, we're going to do the same. And we're going to understand that. Because everybody, if you look at it, right, whatever leader you have, the team reflects the leader. You look at it in sports, you can look at all across the board. The team reflects the leader. If you believe that leader is a very good leader, then the team usually follows suits in some avenues and aspects. They may be good at certain things, but there's other things where they're not going to be good at because that leader isn't good in that area. Okay. And then once you do that, that builds on the great culture. Now you have that culture, right? It exuberates from you to your team members, then they exuberate that. And then when you go to hire new professionals, new staff, right? You hire that, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those type of people. And then when you hire that, they come on and then they exuberate that. And then your team. That's why they're saying, when you watch sports or you look at that, you get those type of character players and you get those type of character teammates. And then that builds your culture, right? You can't build your culture without great staff and without staff that reflects the culture, the ownership, responsibility, and accountability that you want. Now, to help with some of that reflection, right, in our next slide, well, to help with that, we're going to go to a couple slides here where I want you guys to participate with me because it's going to help you get to the ownership, responsibility, accountability, and get to the great culture you're looking for, right? Because you need to know this information. When you come in to an area, or if you've been there for a while, you need to know this information and what's going on. So I'm going to ask you guys to participate with me on this. So if you go to Mentimeter or Menti.com, you put in a code on this slide, I want to know, do you know what departments have the most political power in your division and group? So as you can see, the numbers start coming. It's okay. If you don't know, that's fine. All right. All right. We're getting some great participation. Okay. That's great. Because in this case, right, at the end of the day, as a leader, when you're making certain decisions, politics will come into play. And as a leader, you got to be able to make the tough call. That's why certain people can't be leaders, right? In my household, if me and my wife are discussing something and she is kind of on the fence or she don't want to do this and don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, well, honey, we got to do this. I'm going this way. And now she's upset with me for a week. I got to be okay with that. Right? As a leader, some people are going to get upset with you, but you got to have that conviction in what you're doing, understand that to keep moving forward. Okay, so this is great. All right, so we got 15. So we're going to go to the next one. All right. What departments have the most funding? Okay, as a leader in your group, you need to know which departments have the most funding. Okay, because that's important. And you can ask my team members, which are at the agent conference today, which has been going great. They'll tell you when they ask me what's my budget, I say my budget is $100 million. And it's like, really? Yeah, that's the IT budget. In Maricopa County, our IT budget is around 100 million, and I look at that as my budget because depending on what I need to do, I can make projects and convince other divisions to apply that money to get the things I need to do. And then also other departments that have budgets, you can get money in their budgets as well. So, okay, so we're good there. So we got departments most funding, yes. And we got some no's in there. That's okay. But you want to know this as a leader. All right. So are the majority of your projects and applications within those departments? So the ones that have the funding and the ones that have the political power. Now, if you can get a 2-for-1, that's awesome. That's where you want to go. Okay. So as you fill those out, so as you are doing that, then that's where you end up getting a lot of your responses in your business from that aspect. Now with COVID-19, a lot of us are doing great stuff in GIS in those areas that we may have not have been doing. And so for the no's, you guys want to make sure that you start doing that, right? Because at the end of the day, those are your key customers. Those are the customers that push the needle. All right. There's also other customers that you have to work with and we build apps for, but those are not the ones that push the needle on additional funding, on additional staff in those areas like that. So you want to make sure you tailor and you start with those groups first, right? Because you have to prioritize all your projects. Okay. So as you prioritize your projects, you want to look at that and say, okay, let me prioritize these because we all have finite resources. So that's where you want to start with your prioritization. And then you work your way down. And then that way that'll help you moving forward. So I appreciate you guys on participating on that because what that does is when we come here to this slide with the great culture, a lot of you guys are aware of these 5 items. Okay. But you got to continuously improve on those. So yearly assessments, that's a big one. I do a yearly assessment on my own department. Okay. And there's a couple, you could look at it called CIO 90-day reports. And those are pretty good. You can start with one of those as a template. And what I do is I'll make that yearly report and I'll go over, okay, what customers complained this year about maybe we wasn't as fast as we should, or if our staff getting enough training, maybe I'm down a couple staff where I got staff taken from me that's slowing me down. And I put the numbers on paper, right? I put the presentation together and I highlight the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I put it all together and then I put options in there of how I want to address that, what I'm going to attempt to do to address that. And so then when I take that report and I go show the CIO, my boss, say, okay, here's where we did good this year. Here's where we can improve. And here's where we kind of, just kind of fell off the map. It was a little atrocious there. And so then he gets to see that and he's like, okay. And he gets to see the responses, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't write anything down and you present it, it doesn't really mean anything. I could tell I need 3 people, but until I write it down. And then what happens is you put your boss in a position to make a decision. So the decision isn't, do we have enough money? The decision is, do I want to help the GIS group or not? That's the decision. Do I want to solve this problem? This person has presented these options of how to solve it. Do I want to solve the problem or do I don't want to solve the problem? And then if your boss picks the don't want to solve the problem, then don't solve the problem. One of the worst things as a leader you could do is say, I need this. And when you don't get it, you figure out a way to make it work. And everybody's like, Dave, what you talking about? That's not right. I'm like, that is correct. If I go in there and say, I need 2 staff members to complete these 50 projects, and we battle it out, and they say, we're not giving it to you. And then I go complete 50 projects with no personnel staff. What I just told my leader and staff in county is, I did not know what I was asking for. So the next time I come to ask, they're going to question what I bring up. They're going to question it. They're going to look at, and they're probably going to keep saying no. So if you need something, if you say for 50 projects, I need 2 people, you don't get the 2 people, or you don't get the funding related to 2 people, then don't do the 50 projects. Okay? And I see this happen even not in GIS, but in IT. And I can't stress it more. You lose your credibility, your trustworthiness when you ask for something and then they say no and you end up doing it without what they asked for. Or if you ask for something and then you don't use it. Like, oh, I asked for 300K or 50,000 and then I didn't need it or I gave it back. That does not look good, because that means you didn't know what you was asking for, so they can't trust you asking for other items. So you have to be extremely careful there when you do that. Also, training plans. This is a big one that I do, and I'll give you a little secret. I don't know if Esri's on the call, but I kind of have Esri make my training plan for me. So don't tell him, don't tell him I said that. But, because we're kind of a large county and agency, and I'm able to get them to kind of make the training plan. Now, they've done a great job, and we kind of influence some of that. But I had them make a training plan and say, hey, if I want to be a GIS manager, an analyst, this and that. And I had them make that specific with conferences and other things that are free and sessions. And then I put that online and I share that with my departments to say, okay, if you want somebody to know GIS, here's the level of effort you need to take into educating that person. Now, we'll help you with some of our things that we have, but here's what you got to do every year. You got to take 1 or 2 of these classes every year. And over a 5-year period, they should be certified in this aspect or whatnot. But then I also do those for our staff, or not me, but my managers I work with. They do that for our staff. And we put that in their career, their performance plan, right? Because in their performance plan, career goal, I ask them, what are your career goals? We ask them, what are your career goals? I have a gentleman on my staff that is a GIS administrator, and he's also very good at server items, administrating servers and things like that. And he was in a data center. So we asked him, and he wants to really learn how to use Microsoft Azure and how to understand that, because we are going to move to the cloud. So we have that as one of his development goals. Because at the end of the day, right, if your employee, which is your most critical resource, there's 2 most critical resources that any department has: staff and data. You don't understand your staff and you don't understand your data, you're really bad off. Okay, you can't have a great culture, you can't be anything. So you got to do staff first, then you tackle data. Don't try to do data first. It may seem easier, but don't do it. Do staff first. So when you build those career goals with staff, right, you want staff to work and be on your team because they want to be there. And so I asked them, I said, hey, I want you to evaluate every year whether you want to continue to work on our team or not. And if you decide that, it's not as being as good for you as it used to be, then that's okay. You can, I will write you a letter of recommendation to go somewhere else. So that's really important to do that and make sure they have that. Also, with our goals with the COVID-19, we actually put a lot of our COVID-19 items on our goals, and a COVID-19 goal, and then we weighted that higher than all of our goals because we're doing so much ad hoc work for COVID-19. I want to make sure on our performance plans that all of our employees get credit for that. And if they do a great job, then that'll actually boost them up, and potentially we can end up giving them more salary at the end of the year because of all the great work they did for COVID. So that's another way to do that as well. Also have quarterly meetings with your customers and invite some of your key staff, right? Some of your high-end key staff with your customers, and have your customers present their business goals. Have them present their business goals, what they want to accomplish, and then tie their goals into your GIS projects that you're doing. And I like to lead with that first. And then part of that too is, if you can, with some of your large ones, do a little GIS charter with them. Put a charter together saying, here's what we're going to do over the next year. Here's how we're going to accomplish it, and all those items. And then the biggest thing with that, though, is as a leader, you have to meet with the director first. So whoever's in charge of that department, as a leader, you need to meet with that director, go over all those items with him, and then ask his or her and ask their permission to then meet with their employees every quarter. What I've seen in the past is where people will meet with the managers every quarter, come up with all this great work, and then the division director comes in and just shoots it all down. Nope, don't want to do that. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then he's upset. That person's upset with you because you didn't include them. And now you have a situation on your hands. So definitely don't do that. Go one-on-one with the director or division lead first. Get everything they want to do and understand. Because sometimes, and I also don't like to have that meeting with their key staff, have it one-on-one, because sometimes the director may have questions that maybe they should know, but they don't want their staff to know they don't know. So they'll talk to you directly at that level, and then you can have a meeting with him or her and everybody. Also have quarterly meetings with your partners and invite your key staff and your key customers as well to that, right? We have our meetings with Esri and Eagle View, which is some of our partners, as well as others. But then we also meet more frequently when as needed. But that keeps them in line with what's going on. That also keeps me in line with what's going on too. So let's say our Parks Department reaches out to Esri for something, but didn't include me. Well, guess what? I don't find out till now I got to pay, some additional cost, or we got to link this to my server, and I don't have time to do that right now, but Parks needs it ASAP, and now we have this situation. So definitely do those meetings. That's important to understand where your partners are and who may be talking to them, even though they're not talking to you instead. Now also, one of my favorite ones, showcase your projects and your staff, right? That is really important. Showcase everyone's projects and staff at conferences and internal communications. However you can do that, you definitely need to do that, because at the end of the day, that's uber important to showcasing why you're good and why they should use you versus using somebody else. People ask me all the time. We're a decentralized GIS department, and people always ask me, like, which one is better, centralized or decentralized? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Both of them has their benefits and both of them has their minuses. It's all how you work with everybody, right? So in my 5 years there, I have never gotten one person go to the board or supervisor and get money to use open source GIS or to use something that I did not see or whatever. Because of showcasing the projects and staff, the first thing the board or the county manager will be like, all right, did David's team see this first? That's the first thing to say. So I don't have to educate my customers on not doing it. I don't have to worry about people spending money that I have to then fix after the fact, because I've done all that so everybody believes we are the best. So they're like, well, if that team hasn't looked at it, well, then I'm not going to vote on that until they say something. And so those are the things that you really want in your culture, right? Because think about it, in IT, we see this quite a bit, and sometimes in our applications teams, a department goes get grant funding, buy an app, don't include IT, then get in and they're trying to put it together. It's not working right. And then all of a sudden, they throw it across the wall and then you have to drop everything and adjust it. And that's all because of the fact that the department, there's two reasons why departments do that. And we're going to get very honest here. One, they think you're slow. They think you're slow. And two, they may not like you. Let's just be honest, okay? So, because everybody knows you have an IT department. Everybody at that level knows who does what work because the money goes there, right? When they're looking at their budget, they know how much money they're sending to IT. They know what IT stands for. They know what IT is supposed to do. But the reason they don't come to you is, one, you're too slow, or they believe you are. Or two, they may not like you because you may have didn't deliver a couple projects, and they're like, oh, when I go over there, they tell me everything they can't do and why they're so busy, why they can't make this happen, why they can't do that. And that's that perception, right? So if you want to stop people from doing that, you got to clear up the perception. You got to be honest. As a leader, I've went to another leader and said, hey, what's going on here? What can my team and I do better to serve you guys? And I've had leaders be open and honest with me in a meeting one-on-one, be like, look, here's why we don't use you guys. Bam, bam, bam. And I'm like, great. Now I know how to solve that issue. But if you don't ask the hard questions, then how are you going to solve the issue? And so that's at the end of the day, as a leader, you have to ask the hard questions, make the hard decisions, and you may be lonely. You may be the only one at the top, But at the end of the day, I believe it will benefit you. One of the things that with a lot of the COVID response, people ask me, how did you guys be so prepared and everything? A couple years back when Esri was first coming out with Web App Builder and doing modularized application development, I said, hey, team, we really want to go to this. I really want to go to this. And I got massive pushback. Everybody wanted to do custom apps, do it across the board, whatever. And at the end of the day, I was like, okay, if we're going to do custom apps, here's what I'm going to require of you. Here's the expectations. We need to spend 3 months out of the year upgrading every custom app to the latest version of JavaScript, the latest version of the web browser, all this. Because if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And here's what I expect. And then they're like, well, I don't want to spend all my time, redoing an app every year. I'm like, well, then maybe we should only do custom when needed and start here first. And so then I mapped out the plan of when we would use Web App Builder and when we would give that to a customer and then when we would go to the next step. And then once I did that, then it was like, okay, you have a plan and we understand your plan. And then we was able to move forward with that. And to this day, man, I would say that's one of the best decisions I've made with our team is we were able to deliver a lot of COVID-19 applications and solutions within hours. But if we were still doing those custom apps like we were, we wouldn't have been able to. And so now one of the big things for us is making sure I document all those items that we were doing for COVID. And as the economy gets better and starts, and it's looking like we're not going to have any revenue shortages and everything, I really want to take that time to ask for raises and more staff based on all the great work we've just done and be able to present it in such a way that, like, man, we got to do it. We believe in what you guys are doing and we want to keep that going. So we got to give the GIS team what they're looking for. So for me, that's pretty much the end of my presentation. I just want to express that and explain that to you guys today because I do know that I love the work that our GIS folks are doing in the communities and everything. And I think sometimes we get in our own little world. And if we just broaden our world a little bit more, then the GIS groups will be managing a lot of these different things. And we bring such a great viewpoint and energy, I believe, to IT that we can help really push IT to the limits they should be at because we are used to that. We're, customer first. We're used to working with the customers hand in hand. We don't be like, well, I need a project manager. I need a BA. We get dirty. We get in there with the customer and make sure they get what they need. And we try to be as cost effective and effective overall as possible. So I really think if we broaden our horizons, we can be able to do that. So yeah. So this slide is, I don't have any questions, but I have some answers. So feel free. We got a couple minutes left to ask whatever questions you want.
Hey, David, this is Jamie. I'm helping with the moderator, and there is one question in the chat that we had.
Yes.
And it is from Shawnee. She wants to know, how do you say no to projects when they are being mandated by upper management?
Well, okay. So usually what I say is, here's how much it costs, and here's how much resources I need to get that done. And so a lot of times I do not say no, because if it's upper management, at that point, what happens is upper management decide they want to do this. So I'm like, okay, we getting this done. Here's what I need to do to make this happen, and here's what I need. And a lot of times they're going to give you what you need because they want you to do the work. So usually it's a catch-22 with that, right? Because if you've done some of the tools and things beforehand, they don't usually mandate things down the pipe. But also as a leader, if you talk to your CIO or your boss, sometimes those things come down because of other forces out of your control. And at the end of the day, as a leader, you're just going to have to, get it done. My wife tells me, hey, I need this done. You could tell by her body language and the way she asks, she ain't asking. She telling. So you got to pick your battles. But what I will tell you that on that one, though, is when you complete that project, really have tracking on how well it's doing, how many hits you're getting, how much time you spent doing it and everything. Because if they mandated it and it turns out it's not a big hit and it doesn't go well, like once you build it but nobody uses it, the next time they'll come ask. And I've had that happen before. It's like, all right, did all that, knocked it out quick, put all the metrics on it, and 2 months later, nobody's using it. And then I send that to them and say, hey, nobody's taking advantage of this. What can we do to make people take advantage? And they're like, well, we thought we needed it, we didn't. And then all of a sudden, next time they ask, so because they don't want to feel like they was wasting your time. Looks like another question popped up.
Yeah, it looks like Patrick asks, how do you best measure success and the value that your team brings to the agency? Great question.
Oh, that's a great question. So, success is in the eyes of the customer. I don't measure success for my team. I measure through what the customer is. In the county, we're big on NACO. At the Maricopa County, they're big on NACO and awards. So I go out and get the awards. Because for me, right, if the board of supervisors and the county leadership, if that's what they value and see as success, then I have to show that for them to see that I'm successful. Now, internally for me, I see success as my staff growing. Like right now, I think we have about 4 or 5 staff members presenting at AGIC, and we got a previous staff member presenting as well that used to be on my team. And I look at that as growth. And if they can get into leadership positions, we had one person lead to become a manager at the airport a few years back. So I measure my success of my team as the growth of my team, and the more I could delegate to them where they can go to meetings with high-end executives, present, say the things we need to do, and the actual our leaders take advantage and know them very well, like know them by name, right? That's what I measure success. But you have to measure the success in who pays the bills. That's just the way it goes. So you have to understand what is important to them. In my county, it's awards. So I go get awards.
Thank you, David. That was excellent. I would encourage everybody that has joined us this afternoon to come back in an hour and join us for our panel discussion, as well as Carpe Geo 2. David and Tonya will also be joining us for that panel discussion. I expect it's going to be wonderful. Right now, we've got breakout sessions with our conference sponsors. Please join them and thank them for supporting us and helping us make this possible. And a half hour later, we have our networking for everyone. So thanks a lot, and thank you, David. We'll see you shortly.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tonya.
Yep.
I do what Tonya do, too. Awesome stuff. Awesome.
Thanks, guys.